Hey girls, hey! This is Alicia Warnicki on Grey Roots Podcast. I've got Carrie Oakley Miller and Kathy Eggers with me today, as per usual. So today we are going to talk about food and body image and the differences between the generations and what that looked like for people before us and what it looks like now for the ladies after us, and kind of how some of those lines get crossed. I guess let's go ahead and start with some stories. Do you guys have any memories or stories of your grandparents as far as food was concerned, or body image, or any comments, things that were just kind of considered normal that maybe now people would gasp and be like, I can't believe that they said that?
Yes, I have a million.
All
I
right,
think
share one.
so. It was not my mother-in-law, but her mom, so grandmother-in-law, would comment on my weight every single visit. Every single visit. Whether I had gained weight or not weight, she would always comment, "Oh, wow, you've put on some weight." Or my hair, she'd comment on my hair. Have you looked at the new hairstyles lately, which is still part of body image? Have you seen? Because I always have had this big kind of wild hair, always. And she would make comment after comment. But then what was so interesting, she would then serve me cookies, and if I said no to a cookie, she would get upset about that. So it was this double standard of, don't turn down my cookies, but you kind of turn down some cookies. And man, I would struggle every time we would go visit her. I had to prepare myself for that, and it would be heartbreaking. I'm not going to lie, it'd be heartbreaking. I also had it just growing up with my own dad. He was obsessed with my sister and I and the way that we looked. And so it was always about body image, and always about, did we look the part? Were we pretty enough? Were we thin enough? Were we all the things? It was talked about all that. It was obsessive, to be honest. Obsessive.
Carrie, how about you?
It wasn't so much from grandparents. It was more just in our family dynamic. I do have three sisters as well, and it was a thing. Our hair, my dad would comment on our hair. Oh, what do just, and it just made me self-conscious. Like, are you complimenting me, or are you something wrong? It was just so confusing coming from people who are supposed to love you. Just thinking about you, Kat, that's so sad. And even it was just a thing in our family as far as like, oh, you're going to wear that? Or, oh, you should wear that. So, just kind of these messages of my body is what makes me valuable. It's kind
Yes.
of what I got.
I remember one time, and I was an adult at this point, but I was, I don't know, somewhere back to my hair. I had cut my hair a bit shorter, and I remember an uncle saying to me, "Oh, I guess you've been married long enough that you would cut your hair." Because I used to have long hair. You would cut your hair, and I started growing it back out that day, longer. Because I'm like, what does that mean? You've been married?
Hmm.
What? You've let yourself go basically because you've cut your hair short. Is this message it sent to me? And yeah, I have big issues with this topic.
Well, I grew up in a little bit different environment because, for the most part, my mom and I lived with her parents. So we had three generations in our home already. And when I went to visit my dad, he lived with his parents. So again, when I went to visit, it was, three generations. So it's kind of hard for me to differentiate between my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation with this, because it kind of all came at once. But I remember at my dad's parents' house, my those grandparents, my paternal grandparents, and they were Depression era people. And so you did not waste anything. Not wasting food. Definitely
Hmm.
Yeah,
didn't waste food.
right.
And so the Clean Plate Club was very much a part of that culture when I went there. My grandma would make all this food, and then it would all be served family style, like all on the table. Everybody had plates, and and man, like, I just remember, like, if there was anything that was left, right, you ate it. Like, I don't know why
Right.
you couldn't. I guess you could store it. They would like store leftovers, but really the preference was that you would eat it. And I remember everybody just being so stuffed and be like, Leisha, come on, there's green beans left. Eat the green beans. You eat the green beans. I'm like, I don't want to eat the green beans. No, 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 come on, we gotta finish them. We gotta finish them. And that's not to say any disrespect to, my grandma or grandparents, my dad, or anything like that, because I think that's the generational pull, right? They grew up in a time where like you might not know when your next meal is. And I don't know how many people today in this country actually, like within our realm, actually are faced with that. Like they have
Mhm.
you have no idea when your next meal is going to be. It's not when your stomach growls or when you get hungry, right? So that obviously formed a lot of their beliefs around food and behavior around food. For me, that wasn't really great because that meant, I was very self conscious about my body and body image anyway. Whenever it was like, eat the food, then if I felt like I didn't have any control, right? Like if I didn't eat the food, then they weren't happy. But if I did eat the food, then I was too full and I wasn't happy. So it kind of created a little bit of a conundrum. And I'm sure they didn't know anything about that, right? I also think that, like my parents' generation, the what we would call the boomers now, even though I think some people call us boomers, but that's wrong. So if y'all are
Yeah,
calling us boomers, we're Gen
We're
Xers,
not.
right? We're
we're Gen
not
Xers.
boomers. I know it's like, hey, boomer, that's not us.
Not us. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Not us.
I
Okay.
mean, you might
But
could call
that
us Hey Karen. There are moments where we could be a Hey Karen,
I
but
have definitely been a Karen multiple times in my life.
boomers.
We're not boomers. No. Um, but like that generation, I think very much was tuned into body image, right? I mean, that was just kind of the generation where women were starting to go and be able to work, like in the corporate world, real jobs, where they could start to do that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. But the better your body looked, the more success you were going to have either in your newfound workplace or finding a man who was successful in the workplace. So it almost was like a determiner, or let's say a factor of what your life was going to be, what your success was going to be. Parents all want your kids to, we don't want them to want for their next meal. We want them to be successful. Now people say you get good grades, go to school, and I think back then um, that was kind of that mantra. So go to school, get good grades, all that. It was, hey, make sure you're for the women, make sure your nails are painted, make sure you have some makeup on, don't leave the house looking a mess. Put yourself together, take some pride in the way that you look. Don't eat too much. A moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. So I think definitely looking back at that is very different from what we know now and what that is now in our culture and the culture of the daughters-in-law, the young ladies today.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned of how if you look, the better you look, the better your body was, you'll get a man, the better job you'll get. Well, it even extended into the kids. I felt like kind of more in Kathy and I's situation that we talked about was your value as a parent. If your daughter is pretty, if your daughter's skinny, then that means you're a good mom, or that portrays
Right.
something on you, a value on you. If you don't look that way anymore, I can't look that well if my daughter is. Okay, well, look at my daughter. Well, then it's almost like a trophy.
Yeah.
It's so.
You hit it. I feel like as a kid, that's exactly how my sister and I were. We were trophies. We had to be the prettiest. We had to be the homecoming queens. We had to be the beauty pageant winners. We had to be all the things. And there was something about that my dad and my mom too, but my mom had her own body image issues. So my dad really focused on us being that top girl.
Hmm.
It was insanity.
It's very confusing as a child, I think.
Well, your
Like,
worth, what it says to you
yeah.
is that is your worth. And so if you deviate from that, if you do get older and maybe gain some weight or whatever, or your hair doesn't look, I mean, I don't know, whatever, then your worth goes out the window with it. I
Devalues
mean, it
who you
does.
are.
And
The experiences that we have growing up in our youth when we're younger, those form the beliefs that we have, and we carry those through until something else comes along and replaces that with a different belief, right?
yeah,
So I think one of the other things that I was thinking about also, so my mom's generation, you think about like the models, the women who were in the magazines and all of that, actresses, things like that. That was kind of the Twiggy era, right? I don't know if you guys remember Twiggy, but I remember my mom and my grandma talking about Twiggy, and she was just like it sounds. She was like a stick, super thin, not a whole lot of shape, but thinness was considered the goal, attractive, right? I don't know what it was in my grandma's era, but that was, I think, definitely for my mom. And then my era, I felt like, back in like the late 80s, we had Cindy Crawford,
Hmm.
all of that. Like I
Brooke
remember thinking
Shields.
like, yeah, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm so glad like fit and like muscular legs are beautiful now. It's not about my boobs anymore, right? It used to be about boobs. My dad was always like, oh, boobs, and I was so glad because I didn't have any boobs, so I was excited that it was muscular for legs. Yeah, so just comparing the rise of the supermodels, right? The 90s, early 2000s, the heroin chick. And then, how when Gen Z kind of came along, there was this whole body neutrality, right? Like nobody is bad, right? Like there's a boutique up by where we are, and one of their taglines is, what was it? Like clothes for everybody, right? But it's like for
But do
every
you think that was
body.
our generation or the one next? The next guy?
No, I don't even think millennials. I think the Gen Z is kind of when that started.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree.
Um,
Yeah.
Hmm.
yeah. And it's kind of like, hey, it's okay if you're in a larger body. It's okay if you're in a smaller body. And that's kind of where that came. But then with all that, and even kind of before that, when iPhones came around, we had the flip phones and the ABC 123 phones. But then once iPhones came, and then all the girls had the marketing, like no longer were you looking at the magazines, what was it, Young Miss and whatever
Hmm.
else those magazines were when we were around. Now you had it
And
right
be
in front of your face.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and disordered eating skyrocketed once social media came.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skyrocketed because girls could compare
So sad.
instantly
Huh?
with themselves on the screen and the girl that's posting her perfect picture and her perfect body.
Right. Which is also probably like filters came in, photoshopping
Hmm.
and
Correct,
right, all of
correct.
that. So then you have these girls that are kind of looking at their bodies. And I think the other thing that has a lot to do with this is like they could now take the phone and take pictures of themselves and see themselves. Right. So before you
Hmm.
had to go to a mirror to see yourself. Now all you have to do is, have a friend or, I mean, everybody's got a phone everywhere. I take pictures of the back of my hair sometimes to see like what's going on back there in the morning, right? I'm like, I'll just take a picture of it and see if I have any knots or anything.
When you accidentally take a picture of yourself or you turn it like this, you're like, ooh, I look like a troll. Where did
Right.
that come from?
And the different angles of the
Yeah.
photography. So I think that knowing that was kind of like the whole history where everything came from. How do we as mothers-in-law not kind of bring our baggage like our previous generations did with us? How do we not bring our baggage into the next generation of our daughters-in-law and our granddaughters, right? How do we I kind of hate the word body positivity, but for lack of a better word, that was a buzzword for a body positive, be positive about your body. But how do we, instead of body positivity, how about self-worth
Mm.
positivity, right? Like you are valuable because of who you are, not because of what you look like, not because of what you can do, not
Well,
because of
I
your
think it
hair.
starts super early, though. I think it starts when these girls are little and the comments start. And I do think, for the most part, when you're little, those comments are innocent. Wow, you look beautiful. Oh, look at your hair. You got your hair in braids. Oh, wow, you want some lipstick. Oh, yes, look at those lips. I remember my mom, she was obsessed with lips. If you had big lips, she would always talk about lips. Look at their big lips. And I think it starts out innocent. I don't think she meant anything by it, but I think then it progresses, right? Then you got some curves developing. Oh, are those little boobies coming up? We just keep going and keep going.
Hmm.
And I think we have to, from the get go, just kind of, in my opinion, just take it off the table. Like, take it off the table is what I think. I would love for it just not to be a discussion about all of that. So, how do you do it?
Hmm.
How do you compliment someone, a little
Right,
girl?
because I don't think it's wrong to give compliments. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe it's how we're giving the compliments. Maybe it's because people are going to compliment people, right? I don't.
Well, let me give you an example. I was at a funeral with my dad before he passed away, and two of my cousin's children are sitting in front of us. And he says to one, "Look at you. Aren't you just the prettiest little girl?"
Mm.
He looks at her sister and says, "I bet you're so smart."
Mm. Ouch.
What
Yeah.
message did he just send in that minute? to both of those girls.
Mm-hmm.
You're so smart. I don't know. I do think we have to be, I think you have to be careful with your words. Words matter. And so if you're going to compliment, then you need to be careful how you compliment, because I'll even catch myself. I'll see, two people dressed, and one, I like her dress. And somebody go, oh my gosh, I love your dress. Well, then I immediately look at the next person and think, oh wait, I should probably say something. I mean, and your dress is great too.
Yeah,
And you look
right.
beautiful too. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
But then at what point do we just can we just be honest? Right. So, for example, we went on for fall break this year, we went on a little family beach trip with all our kids and the grandkids and everything. Both my daughters-in-law are pregnant right now. And so they're wearing pregnant clothes, right? Just kind of fun when you get like a whole new
Mm-hmm.
set of things. So anyway, my oldest daughter-in-law, she comes down in this little jumper. And the jumper was a cute jumper, but it just didn't look great on her. And she's like, "Hey guys, what do you think?" I mean, and hopefully she wasn't offended by this. And I'm like, that's not that's not really doing anything for you. I think you can choose something better that you look better in. Maybe that's wrong, but then she came down in this dress and she looked amazing. And I'm like,
Mm.
"You look great in that dress. That dress is a much better fit for you." So what do you do with that? Is that wrong to say, hey, are you looking, do you want me to just nod and say, yes, you look great? If somebody's asking my opinion, I don't want somebody to do that to
I'm
me.
never asking you your opinion.
Yeah.
But I will tell you.
Yes. Actually,
That is
that's
what
one of
I've
the things
just
I appreciate
learned.
about you.
Then here's the thing. If you can't, and I know it's different with clothes versus body image, wow, your breasts look so perky, right? That's totally different. But if I can't say that I think something doesn't look good on you, then the things that I say look really great, it doesn't really matter because everything's going to look right. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's inconsequential. It's like if you can't say no, then what value does your yes have? I don't know.
What if
Maybe
we
we're
took it
getting
in a,
off on that. I
yeah,
don't
what
know.
if we
What do
took it
y'all
in a
think?
different direction of what could be even more powerful is how do we talk about ourselves? So our generation did it a certain way, and I think we're doing it better, right? And then the next one is doing it way better than we are. As far as how do we talk about ourselves, or when we're around food, oh my gosh, I can't eat that because I had this yesterday, and I'm, just the way that
Yeah.
we approach food and the way that we talk about our own body in front of other family and friends, and or our spouse. Even how do we talk about our hair, or are we constantly tearing ourselves down and just pointing out all the negative, or is it, because I think that can be hugely powerful either way. And if our daughters and granddaughters hear that over time, it's gonna be like, oh, I guess look at my hair. I got to watch out what I eat. It's just a subconscious message that they're picking up from us. And so having granddaughters, to be careful, how are we, not gonna eat that cake because, just it can be a quieter, more positive, you know what I'm saying? I feel like the
Right.
Oh,
way that we
Right.
100%. Yeah.
just, yeah, talk daily can be hugely influential on our kids, and then our daughters-in-law who are also watching us too, right? What am I saying about myself? How do I feel about myself? What message am I giving and putting out there about myself, and my own value that I bring? I don't want to wear that because that doesn't look good. And we can, to a point, be normal, oh, I don't like that, but
Yeah.
also
Or
just
I
to be
don't feel good in
careful.
this.
Yes,
I don't feel
yeah,
good in this.
right, yeah.
I think with the food thing, and this was something relatively recent that I've kind of bumped up against and learned, is within probably the last 5 to 8 years, is that food shouldn't really have a morality, right? Food isn't good or bad. Food is just fuel, right? And some
Right.
fuel is more nutritious and some fuel is less nutritious. But oh, I don't want to eat that, I'm trying to lose weight. I better not eat that. Well, you can have that cookie at night. If you want to have a cookie every night for a snack, you can have that, but you're going to have to balance it out with other things to make sure that you get enough nutrients to balance out the cookie, right? Because the cookie still has value. The cookie has calories and your body needs calories. So I've kind of looked at that as just a different shift of how I try to look at food. But I'll tell you, it's hard because I still look at things and I'm like, I better not eat that.
Hmm.
That's bad, right? I don't ever want my granddaughters to think that food is bad because I think that's That's an easy rabbit hole to go down, right?
Hmm.
And then you somehow
Yeah.
feel guilt that you've eaten this quote unquote bad food when it's just calories.
So
That's
what
it. It's
advice?
fuel.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. And I know that because my mom, she didn't really have a lot of boundaries on food herself. I went the opposite direction. So I took my kids all organic and they couldn't have sugar, and we had Zevia drinks and all the things, and that so backfired on me. I have kids now who have some disordered eating because of that. Me trying to go
Mm.
the other extreme and be so healthy and labeled foods good and bad. Oh, that's terrible for you. Those
Right.
items are terrible. I'll buy you the organic sun
Hmm.
drops, but those, and it created an issue. So, but I think here we sit now as these women who've lived these lives. What advice do we give these young daughters-in-law who have to deal with women like us, who have all these issues, who say all these
Hmm.
things? How do they try to raise their daughters with women older who've got their own food issues, who comment, who do believe there's good and bad food, who do believe it's okay to comment about bodies? What advice would we give them?
Mm.
I feel like it's similar to other things we've talked about, is just stay true to what you want to and your values for your own family, and then put boundaries on that if you need to. Hey, here's what we do feed my our kids. I would appreciate if you did this while they were with you. Or here's what we don't feed them. And then even if she's extreme as far as talking about her own self and negativity, like, hey, if you can have this conversation, probably not, but can you maybe not talk so negative, or I'm trying to put a positive, talk about bodies in a positive way with my daughter, and I would appreciate if you would support me in that. So I don't know, those conversations aren't that easy to have, but if you
Yeah.
need to set boundaries on that, don't be afraid to. Even if you get to our age and go, man, I should have done it different, because I do, Kathy, in the moment we thought we were doing the
Yeah.
right thing. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to go through your own process. Just be true to who you are and what you
Yeah.
want for your family, and that's okay, whatever that is.
I
And
think,
go
and
ahead.
well, Carrie, I think you hit a good point there. Like, right, have the conversation, but invite them in. It is hard to say, like, and honestly, like when I hear you saying, like, I'd appreciate it if you XYZ, to me comes across a little like, well, I'd appreciate it if you didn't. It comes
Yeah,
kind of snarky. It sounds snarky to me.
sarcasm. Yeah.
To me, and that could just be like my triggers, right? But I know whenever my daughters-in-law have invited me into something and said, "Hey, Gigi, we really need your help with this because we're trying to promote a positive body image and not have any negativity around that so that our daughters grow up not with the same stuff that we had." So, one of the boundaries that we're setting, and with us too, and if you could help us with that, is not talking negatively about our own bodies in front of them. Can you help us with that? Like, what's she gonna say? That's the stupidest thing I ever said. Well, maybe she will, but then you know what? Then you can set that boundary. But like, invite them in, and that every time
Because
they
it
said
has
like,
nothing to do with her story. It has nothing to do with the
yeah,
mother-in-law, what she's doing,
yeah,
saying. It's like just bringing her into what you're doing.
yes.
Whatever she did or happened to her is fine.
Or even like, hey, like I know one of my daughters-in-law like really struggled with body image. I have another one that didn't struggle at all. And we're all trying to figure out like what did her mom do that she was just totally confident in the way she was because she was heavier when she was a little girl and she couldn't have given a crap less. Like, how do I do that? How do I, like kids used to make fun of her and what, and she's like, meh, that's all right. I think I look good. It's like it just bounced right off her like it was water off a duck's back. And I think if we can get, like the young mamas, if we can get our kids to that, I think that is the goal. Like, and I am like, I have so much respect and am just so impressed by her mom because I'm like, I wouldn't have known how to do that. I mean, I remember our oldest son Andrew, and he was like, I don't know, maybe 11, and I caught him grumbling and complaining about how fat his legs were, and I'm like, and y'all knew Andrew growing up. Andrew was a string bean. Maybe he was starting to get muscle, but I'm like, Andrew, you do not have. And then I realized, I'm like, where would he even hear that he has fat legs? And I'm like I don't mean to, while I'm complaining about my own body, but it's oozing out of me and it's rubbing off and it's
Hmm.
affecting them.
Yeah.
We just don't realize it. So I think that's a great boundary that you say, hey, we don't say any negative things about our bodies in front of our kids, males, females, whatever.
And I
Can
think
you
you
help
have to
us with
just,
that? I know it's hard for me, but we would love it if you could join us with that.
and I think with the food, I think you have to decide for your family. Like, I was very dogmatic with my parents not to give my kids sugar, and they would do it anyway. And at the time, I remember getting so angry with them. And now my parents are gone, and I'm older, and I realized a treat on a weekend with their grandparents who are watching them so I can have a weekend away is really not that big of a deal. But when I was young, it was a very big deal for me. If they were going to feed the McDonald's, I was like going to have a cow. I'm like, we don't eat McDonald's. And my kids are like, McDonald's!
Yeah.
And you know what? And you know what? Who freaking cares? That's how I feel now. But, when you're young and you're in that, so think about it. How will you feel later? Like, yes, this is what you do at your house, but is it? Is it worth the relationship to go at your parents or your in-laws about that food? Maybe it is for you,
Right.
or maybe it isn't. But, I would just think about it. Think about truly what are going to be your boundaries, and then can you be flexible at all in those kind of situations or not? But I think explain to why. If you do have to set the boundaries on those foods, kind of explain, hey guys, the reason we do it is this.
Yeah, I think that's
The
hugely
research
helpful.
and yeah,
If you have a child that has celiac, right?
right.
They cannot have gluten. Like they cannot, right? Well, that's different than,
Yes.
a kid that doesn't have that problem and goes to get a hamburger and eats the gluten on the white bread that will probably last another 10 years if you don't, put it in the refrigerator. And it's not great for them either, but is that a hill worth dying over?
Right. Is it a
Right.
preference, I guess would be it? Is it a preference or is it
Right.
truly a health risk? If it's a health
Right.
risk,
Hmm.
absolutely. But if it's a preference, maybe it's not worth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and flipping it to
all.
the mother-in-law's side to also like things are different, right? There is a gluten intolerance. It's real, guys. Even
Mm-hmm.
if our generation, or even our parents, I would say more than us, but generation, like if you're just because it wasn't a thing, it's a thing now. So just
Yeah.
Two of
respect
us.
that and
Two of us are gluten
recognize
free.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, recognize that things are different now. And it's not the low fat generation that we grew up believing that is now wasn't true. Like, we've come
Yeah.
out of so much and we are not a healthy generation because of the way, we're just not.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they're more aware, they're paying attention to more healthier options and to just respect that and to honor that. It's easy. Also, I didn't do that and I'm guilty of this, of not respecting that and just, oh, that I'm not doing that. That's not good for them or bad for, I was that person and struggle with that still. And it's such an easy thing, food. Like whatever the desire is, just go with it. It's okay. But then I liked how you were talking to the daughter-in-laws. Like, okay, daughter-in-laws also recognize, is this really a hill you want to die on with the grandparents, especially if they only have them every now and then. If
Right.
they're having them all the time, okay, I can see that. This is consistent. They're feeding them a lot. I get
Right.
that. But if it can be a special thing to take them out on ice cream.
Also, grandmas, if you don't think that gluten here in the US is a real thing, let me plan a trip to Italy for you and see how you feel when you come back, when you start eating our bread and pasta,
Hmm.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have a friend, she went and she has severe rheumatoid arthritis, which gluten is a huge inflammatory thing
Hmm.
for that. I'm so bad that she's in pain. She went to Italy with me, right? For 10 days. She said none of her joints hurt when she left. She didn't have any of the problems. She ate all the bread, all the pasta, everything that she wanted. And then came back here and had a bellyache
Boom.
and had to cut it all out. Yeah. So I mean there is stuff in it, right? That's not great for our gut. But if it's not all the time, like Carrie is saying, or if the child doesn't really seem to have a problem with it, right? I mean, I don't really struggle with gluten. I definitely had a bellyache when I came back though, when I started eating eating all my gluten stuff, but Anyway,
I think it's just a matter of respect on both sides. Again, we've been talking about this whole
yeah.
time is just respecting each other, whether that's your way or not, or you agree or don't.
Well, and like we've
Yeah.
also said, remembering that there's usually more to the story, recognizing that, gosh, that mother in law might have her own issues around food and body image. And so it goes back to being that friend, maybe having a conversation one day that has nothing to do with just like, I noticed that you talk about yourself this way. Like,
Yeah.
gosh, that makes me sad when I hear you talk about yourself that way. I definitely don't want that for my daughter, but I also don't want it for you. I mean,
Mm,
those younger
Yeah.
girls, they can teach us some things. I mean, I love when
absolutely.
I've got one daughter-in-law in particular. She will have those conversations back at me. She's like, "Why are you talking about yourself like that? Why are you saying that?" And I love that
Mm,
she'll do that for
mm-hmm.
me. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I think while the topic is different, food and body image, the bottom line is the same. Just like you said, Carrie, it's respect, it's conversation, it's boundaries. You're gonna have to get comfortable with that word if you're gonna have a healthy relationship. Everything we talk about, probably that's gonna come up, right? Boundaries
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
every topic.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I always say is yes, boundaries, but also grace and empathy.
Absolutely.
Having boundaries without the grace and empathy is yuck. That's all I'm going to say
Yeah.
about that. It's yuck. It's yuck
Yeah.
because nobody is perfect and nobody's going to get it right all the time. But if you can work together, right? And realize when you cross a boundary, or maybe you cross it, you don't even realize you're crossing it until somebody, till that daughter in law says, "Hey, I don't know if you meant it this way, but when you did XYZ, said XYZ, here's what I heard, the message
Mm-hmm.
that you sent."
I watched a good little video. In fact, I sent it to all my kids this morning. It was about those kind of when something is said hurtful, and the advice was the first thing you do is when someone says something that you immediately think is meant for harm, you can do one of a few things. One is just sit there quietly and let those words fall and see what happens. Let them, the person who said it, sit in the uncomfortableness of their
Mm-hmm.
unkind words. And you let it fall and don't take it in, which I loved. And number two, it was you can respond back and go, did you mean to be unkind at me when you said those words? Was that your intention to harm me?
Right.
And
Right.
boy, that really makes someone pause and
For
have to
sure.
answer that. Either, yeah, actually I did, or
Mm-hmm.
no, of course not. But
Yeah.
it will make them think. And I think, Alicia, you've brought that up before, that when you
Mm-hmm.
call someone out on their words, it makes them think, okay, maybe I'm going to be careful, a little more careful next time using my words to
Yeah.
harm, because
Right.
it does harm.
Yeah.
So anyway, both of those are
Especially
thoughts.
around this topic, because
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think you could probably think of a woman who doesn't struggle with body image in some way. The most
Correct.
beautiful in
Yeah.
your mind, she struggles with something. We all
Yeah.
struggle with something and have. That mother in law that is the meanest witch on the planet, she struggles with body image. The daughter in law who just seems like a
Right.
little brat, she struggles with body image. We all do in some sort of way. So, as women, we can, like you said, be empathetic toward that if this topic ever comes up somewhere, somehow, that we
And I
all
think it's an
struggle.
easy, yeah, I think it's an easy one to use as a weapon too,
Ooh,
as a woman against another woman.
true.
I do, and I think we have to be aware of that and be sensitive, yeah,
Mm,
to that.
hmm.
Tough topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, we are going to wrap it up. We've got some good stuff coming up the next couple episodes. So you guys stay tuned. Follow us on any of our socials as well as your listening platforms. But we've got some conversations with Lauren, the therapist, again. And also, we're going to talk about a new series that is out, The Girlfriend. It's been kind of some controversial stuff in there. So stay tuned and
Done.
we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
So
Bye.